Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. The Bible prophesies a socialistic world government during the reign of the Antichrist. Is there evidence that socialism is gaining prominence throughout the world right now? Pope Francis never misses a chance to push what he calls social justice, which is just another term for socialism. Europe and a majority of the world's nations have now embraced socialism. Even more amazing, the Communist Party of the USA has endorsed Hillary Clinton to become president of the United States. Just like the Pope, she likes to talk about social justice, free health care, free college tuition, and income inequality. It appears that we are closer to the prophesied socialistic world government than many of us want to believe. We need to talk today because I would say that 9 out of 10 people that you would stop on the street and ask them, what's socialism? They probably could not tell you. We are woefully ignorant about the economic systems that determine how we work, how we live, how our government functions. But this may be one of the most important issues in this presidential election, because one candidate is a socialist and the other one is a capitalist. We should know the difference and really understand it. So I'm going to talk first of all about what is socialism. Now, for many years, I'm going to talk from the viewpoint of a person that's more up in years than my average audience. But for many years, we all knew that communism was bad. There was this Cold War from 1945 until 1989 that raged between the USSR and the United States of America. And communism was a terrible thing. We tried to free the world from communism. We wouldn't let communism come into our country. So they were communist, we were capitalist, we were free enterprise. Now, their system didn't work and it slowly came down, 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 down. They didn't call themselves communists though, for the most part. They called themselves socialist. The actual name was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And then the countries that came under their domination after World War II, they also took on the mantle of socialism, not because they wanted to, but because it was imposed upon them by the USSR. Well, when the Berlin Wall came down, everybody said socialism is dead. Capitalism has won. The whole world is going to end up being capitalist. Tyranny has lost and freedom has won. And everybody said, that's wonderful. And the headlines on many of the newspapers and the news magazines said, socialism is dead. However, something really strange happened. Mikhail Gorbachev, while the Berlin Wall fell, he clapped. I saw pictures of him clapping. And yet I read his book, Perestroika, his very famous book, I might say, and the word perestroika means restructuring, or it also means revolution. He said in his book that many people think that perestroika is the end of socialism. He said, I promise you, that's the furthest thing from the truth. And when I read that, I thought, if that's the furthest thing from the truth, then what is the truth? Actually, the first magazine that Endtime Ministries ever published, I wrote an article entitled, "Is Communism Really Dead?" Well, it wasn't, but about 8 years later, that Rupert Murdoch said about socialism, if socialism is dead, why won't it lay down? Because in about 8 or 9 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, when supposedly socialism was dead, of the 15 nations that at that time were in the European Union, 13 of them voluntarily voted into power a socialist government. And we've just been told socialism's done, defeated, over with, the West won the Cold War. And yet, 13 of the 15 Western European powers voted socialism in for their government. So what's going on here? After thinking about it a while and watching events unfold, I realized that while the U.S. was winning the arms race, the Soviet Union was winning the ideological battle. They had focused their money on infiltrating college presidencies, curriculum committees where they chose the books that our students would study from. And they had been winning the battle of ideas while we thought we were winning the battle of arms. It was a real demonstration of the pen is mightier than the sword. Well, I watched all this, and I saw Gorbachev clapping when the wall fell and when the Iron Curtain came down, and yet he said, "I've not forsaken socialism." That's the furthest thing from the truth. So, in fact, was the death of socialism really the victory of socialism? Because as I speak to you today, most of the world is now socialist. Now, let's go to the dictionary and let's define socialism. I've got a couple of definitions that I downloaded for you today that I want you to hear. The first one, socialism, a political and economic theory of social organization that advocates the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole, or by the government, by the state. Here's the second definition. A stage of society in Marxist theory, transitional between capitalism and communism, and distinguished by unequal distribution of goods and pay according to work done. So let me see if I can put it in the terms that I understand. Socialism is either the ownership or the control of the means of production. So instead of letting supply and demand determine how much I produce and how much I charge, instead, the planning committee, the Politburo of the government, has a meeting and they put a 5-year plan out there and they decided how many shoes we're going to need, how many tractors we're going to need, how many automobiles we're going to need. They plan everything out. And then they control the means of production. Now, some countries are presently backing into socialism, not by the governments coming in and owning the factories and the businesses, but by putting so much regulation on the businesses and so much taxation that they basically take control, but they let the owners continue to run them and they let them keep a small amount of the profits while they're taking the lion's share of the profits in taxation. So it's really governmental ownership, only it makes the employer, at least for a while, think that he actually owns the business. Now that's something that's happening, and that's happening more and more right here in the United States of America. So since we referred to socialism being an interim step between capitalism and communism, maybe we should ask, what is communism? Well, I downloaded a couple of definitions for that as well. Communism, a way of organizing a society in which the government owns the things that are used to make and transport products such as land, oil, factories, ships, etc. and there is no privately owned property. Have you noticed that if you own a home, you never really own it? Because the property taxes are getting higher and higher. I mean, you can pay that thing off, and you still may be paying $500, $700 a month to live there, and you paid for it. But socialism loves high property taxes, because what that does, that sends you a message. You don't pay those taxes, the government will come right in and take your home. You're living in your home, but they're charging you for you living in your own home. There was a referendum on the recent ballot of the Republican primary, and it said, would you favor the suspension of the property tax to be replaced with some other form of taxation? And I put yes, because that would get socialism out of my life to a great degree. Well, I never heard any more about it, so I called today. Come to find out, the proposition was approved overwhelmingly, like 3-1 at least, because Americans are suffering under the property tax. However, I asked the question, well, now that the proposition was approved by the Republicans, when's this going to take place? And the man explained to me, no, that didn't have the force of law. That just informs the Republican Party what the people would like for them to do, and then they'll decide which one of those particular policies they fight for and push for and try to get legislation for. So the next thing you got to do is call the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. You're a Democrat. So anyway, just a little aside as I was thinking about all these issues. Now, here's another definition of communism: a political theory derived from Karl Marx advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. So in the communist country, you pretend to work and they pretend to pay you. That's more or less the way it turned out in the Soviet Union. And every place they have tried communism, they've ultimately had to forsake it, because when people have no vested interest in being innovative and working hard, they just go there and do their job, and they go home and they're going to get paid whether they do a good job or not, whether they're highly productive or whether they're very little productive. And that's what they found out in the Soviet Union. That's the reason USSR was going broke. That's what they found out in China. Until China moved to a more of a market approach, their economy was stalemated. So since it didn't work for them, guess what the West is doing? We've decided maybe it'll work for us. Now, to show you how much this has infected us, I already told you that the Communist Party USA has endorsed Hillary Clinton, but she's not the only one. They endorsed Barack Obama both times. Why would the Communist Party endorse Barack Obama for president? And now, why are they, if you'll go to their website, if you'll go to CPUSA, Communist Party USA.org, cpusa.org. I went there today because I couldn't believe what I was reading. And sure enough, they've got this big thing. We must make sure that Hillary wins and push in their people to work for Hillary. I'm talking about the official communist website in America. Now, if I were running for president, I wouldn't want communists endorsing me, because I suppose people would begin to wonder if I was communist. I hate to shock you with all this, but I am telling you the absolute proof. Now, it's not that hard to understand, because Bernie Sanders makes no bones about it. He is an avowed socialist. And he gave Hillary a run for her money. He just came in second place in the race for the Democratic nomination for president. Then he endorsed Hillary Clinton, and he and Hillary They agree on most issues, so much so that according to Bernie, they wrote the Democratic platform together that just happened just last week. So here you have a socialist in America that finished very close to the leading Democratic candidate, but they really didn't differ that much on the issues. Now that brings us to a big question. Is the Democratic Party in America now the Socialist Party? You might even want to say the Communist Party. There's not a lot of difference. Because if you're socialist, you've already pitched your tent toward Sodom and you're headed toward communism. Well, anyway, President Obama, when he was running for office way back in, 2008, he said that he believed in wealth redistribution. Remember old Joe the plumber asked him one day, well, do you believe in wealth redistribution? And President Obama said, well, I do believe that the wealth needs to be passed around. Well, Joe the plumber, he owned his own business, and he's thinking, I want to know what he believes because he's going to take the money I work for and give it to somebody that maybe isn't working. And so he was trying to figure out, do I want to vote for this guy or not? Now, Pope Francis already mentioned him, that he's a strong believer in social justice, which is socialism. I read an article within the last few weeks where he was absolutely bashing the liquid economy. What does he mean, liquid economy? Well, you know, water seeks its own level. Free enterprise is the liquid economy. The government doesn't tell you how much you can produce. They don't tell you how much you can sell your products for. They don't do all that. This is freedom. You raise what you think you should raise. If it doesn't work good, you make what you think you should make. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't sell, you shift to something else. So water seeks its own level. It's called free enterprise. And it is what's made America the richest nation on earth. Until recently, we've started installing bigger and bigger and bigger doses of socialism. Okay, now I've got something I want to read to you, but before I do, let me pause a moment. We're getting close to our deadline for our tour to Israel. The tour leaves on October the 27th, and we're going to be gone for 12 days. We'll arrive back here on November the 7th. Voting day is November the 8th. You can either vote early before you leave, or you can vote the day after you get back from Israel. Nevertheless, we're going to be going there. It's a 12-day wonderful tour. Now, let me just warn you. I know there's a lot of 8-day tours out there that they bring that price down real cheap. It's not a good deal because you spend 2 days going over, you spend 2 days coming back, you tour 4 days. So it's not an 8-day tour, really. It's a 4 or at the most a 5-day tour. On our tour, you really get a full tour and you will see Israel. Furthermore, I've been doing this since 1993 every single year and sometimes twice per year. And we've eliminated all the tourist traps. I mean, they'll tell you there's places where Jesus stubbed his toe here and they'll make up things. Oh, Jesus did this here, but there's no proof for it. It's all made up most of the time to generate dollars, tourist dollars. We've eliminated all those things and we have found things to plug in that nobody should miss going to Israel. You're going to go to the Temple Institute. You're going to see the Ark of the Covenant and all the rest of the furniture they now have ready prepared. They have 70-some pieces of furniture and utensils ready as soon as they get their temple built to move in and start temple administration. You'll see every one of them. It's amazing. Plus, you're going to go to the tomb where Jesus spent 3 days and 3 nights. You're going to stand on the Mount of Olives where he's going to come back, and the Bible says he's going to touch down there. You'll stand there. We'll read the scriptures. That's the same place where he delivered his famous prophecy chapter, Matthew 24, called the Olivet Discourse. We'll go through that prophecy. I'll explain all about it. I'm just telling you, this tour is amazing. But it's not just a tour to Israel. You don't just get the history. You don't just get where Jesus walked, where his apostles walked, where the prophets were. You get more than that. You get the other half of the tour, which is the prophecy side. Now, I'll show you where the Battle of Armageddon is going to begin. I'll show you where the Battle of Armageddon is going to end. And we'll go through the whole thing. We'll show you where the Jews are going to have to run for their life a few years from right now, out in the area called the West Bank. That's where they're getting ready to create a new Palestinian state as soon as the peace agreement is signed. You'll understand that by the time you get back from the United States, your life will be revolutionized. And furthermore, you'll read your Bible like never before. Right now, you're reading it in black and white. But once you go to Israel, you'll read it in Technicolor. Because when you read about the angels appearing to the shepherds on the hillsides of Bethlehem, you're going to stand on those hillsides. When you read about where David killed the lion, where he killed the bear as a young lad, you're going to see that hillside. It's called the Shepherd's Fields. It's amazing. I can't even describe it to you. Plus baptism in the Jordan River, a boat ride in the Jesus boat on the Sea of Galilee. It's amazing. If you've not been, just plan to go. Just pick up the phone right now and call us. 800 Endtime, 800-363-8463. Ask to speak to someone about the tour. My daughter's there to answer your questions. My granddaughter's there to answer your questions. They're experts. They know all about it. I urge you to go with Judy and I. I'll be with you every step of the way. It's going to be marvelous. It's going to be wonderful. We'll have a wonderful time together. Plus, we'll get to know each other a whole lot better, and I look forward to it. I hope you do. The number to call, 800 Endtime. But don't procrastinate, because we're getting real close right now. We have a certain number of seats left, and we don't want you to be left out. So give us a call, 1-800-Endtime. All right. This article caught my eye. It's entitled, Communist Party Unites Behind Hillary. It came out on WND.com yesterday, out of Washington. The Communist Party, USA, may not control many actual votes, but what they lack in support is made up for in enthusiasm. That passion was in full display with a 7-person team of reporters covering their national political convention last month. Now, the Communist Party had their own political convention. Well, listen to the rest. And their convention was the Democratic National Convention that nominated Hillary Rodham Clinton as their undisputed candidate for president of the United States. Is that an exaggeration? You judge for yourself what you're getting ready to hear. Here are excerpts from the editorial produced as part of that coverage by the journalist from the Communist Party, by the team credentialed to cover the convention by the Democratic Party. Donald Trump steals wages. He'd pick your pocket in a New York minute. He lies and spreads hate. He's a racist and a bully. Do not underestimate Trump and the Republicans. While the establishment GOP was surprised by the successful insurgency of so-called outsider Trump, they are united in purpose, delivering more inequality, more misery, more instability, and violence against working class people of all races, genders, religions, and sexual orientations. Let's stop there a moment. More violence? We've got the worst violence right now we've had in many, many years. And the Democrats have been in there for 8 years, endorsed by the communists. We've got more confusion in our nation now than we've had in a long, long time. Well, anyway, let's go on. I'm reading to you from the report on the Communist Party's website. They are united with giant corporations. Oh, by the way, Hillary's made several $1 million speaking of those giant corporations, but they didn't mention that. They are united with giant corporations and billionaire class in their drive to lower wages and living conditions and increase their profits and power. You know, Bloomberg, one of the richest men in America, he endorsed Hillary. And what's that other guy's name that has all the stocks in the bonds? And he owns stocks in a big insurance company. I can't call his name off the top of my head, but he's a multi-billionaire. He's endorsing Hillary, and yet they're saying that the Republican Party's the party of the billionaires. I don't get that, but anyway, let's go on. The union movement, communities of color, students, women, progressives, and the newborn political revolution can help generate voter enthusiasm by talking and tweeting about Clinton and the issues. Now, they're promoting this to the communist website. The communist writers are. Challenging sexism is a must, as well as racism, which has been a coded and overt staple of presidential elections for decades. Winning in a landslide is needed now more than ever, and that landslide for Clinton could swing control of the Senate to Democrats, and other potential positive effects could be felt on the down ballot congressional and state races. The communists, who for decades ran their own candidates for president and vice president, but they stopped in 2008. For many years, they always had their own president, their own vice presidential candidate on the ballot, but not in 2008. They supported Barack Obama in 2008 and in 2012. And now then, they don't just like Hillary and Bernie. So this has been a movement that's taken place. They quit running their own candidates because maybe they think they have their own candidates. They're certainly promoting them like it. Back in the day, when Stalinists Gus Hall and Angela Davis were regularly nominated by the party as presidential and vice presidential candidates every 4 years, the U.S. communists actually had beefs with the Democrats, he said. But in recent years, the party ceased those efforts in favor of a united front with the Democrats, with whom they have very few differences, if any. Okay, let's pause there. Do you get the picture of what's going on? This presidential election may be more important than any of us perceive right now. You're listening to End of the Age.
Rada cut to the chase. Our stated purpose will be to save the world from global warming, polluted water, and contaminated air. However, she continued, our real goal is to form a world government founded on the principles of democratic socialism. Mora smiled at her candor. Rada, he said, this room is one of the few places in the world that you could make that statement without creating an anti-world government revolution. All of us must be very discreet about what we say and to whom we speak. The politically correct phrase that we will use from now on will be global governance. But Morris, Rada protested, do you think a slight change in wording can make that much difference? Let's face it, it's only a matter of semantics. I know, Rada, but when leading the masses, perception is everything. Patriotism is one of the most deeply held emotions in the heart of mankind. People will proudly send their sons to die in a war that they don't even understand, all for the love of their country. We will need to enlist every journalist and every newscaster sympathetic to our cause to help sell our message, which will have to be clearly defined.
To order the novel Dark Intentions, written by Irvin Baxter, call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the Watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the Archives button.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, did you ever believe you would see the Communist Party endorsing presidential candidates? Yet, the Communist Party was so eager to endorse Obama for re-election, it couldn't wait until 2012. It did so a year before the campaign officially got underway. The party was jubilant in 2008 when Obama won his first race for the presidency, hailing Barack Obama's win as a victory for the working class. The Communist Party USA called on the president-elect to carry out his promises, including his noted commitment to spread the wealth. An editorial by the People's Weekly World, the official newspaper of the Communist Party, said the victory was for workers of all job titles, professions, shapes, colors, sizes, hairstyles, and languages. In 2009, President Obama's leadership was one of the best opportunities that Americans have had in decades, declared a civil rights activist addressing an overflow crowd at a gathering sponsored by the official newspaper of the Communist Party USA. Best opportunity we've ever had, they said. Well, the party was never disappointed by Obama. Here's how it critiqued Obama's final State of the Union address earlier this year. In his final State of the Union address, President Obama projected a bold vision for a more socially and economically just nation while appealing to the hopes of the American people. President Obama pointedly rejected right-wing Republican policy solutions, including repeal of Obamacare, aggressive military buildup and action, tax cuts to the wealthy, blocking common sense gun control. He also rejected efforts to exploit the fears of the American people using hate, anti-Muslim bigotry, racism, and division. The challenges facing the nation and planet are immense. Climate crisis, massive concentration and inequality of wealth, growing poverty and declining wages. By the way, those wages have been declining terribly, and all the joblessness has gone up in the last 8 years. Why is President Obama criticizing himself? He's been in office for the last 8 years, and yes, more people are not working today than ever, but, well, he didn't mention that. Going on, including skyrocketing unemployment in the African American community. In the average, as a matter of fact, in black homes here in America, 20% of them don't have one person working. Not a man, not a woman, not a teenager. 1 out of 5 homes, black homes in America, don't have one person working. They're all living off welfare. That's not good for them. How do they keep their dignity? They're going to be trapped in that cycle of poverty. African Americans need jobs. Now let me tell you, there's some good, hardworking African Americans out there, and many of them that don't have jobs would like to have one. But the socialist policies of the recent administration is choking jobs, not creating jobs. There's now over $1 trillion in student debt. There's a crumbling infrastructure. The roads are not good. The bridges are not good. Underfunded schools and social services. Lack of affordable housing. A frayed retirement security system, on and on and on. Now, David Kupelian, managing editor of WND.com, had this to say earlier this year in a commentary on the shrinking divide between the two parties, between the Communist Party and the Democratic Party. Amazing as it may seem, Barack Obama has dragged the entire Democratic Party so far leftward over the past 7+ years that today's Democratic Party has become almost indistinguishable from the Communist Party. I guess that's the reason the Communist Party's endorsing them. Is anybody listening to me? Ladies and gentlemen, we need to hear this. Now, I don't have a vested interest in any candidate, but I do have an interest in the United States of America, and this election is going to affect it dramatically. Let's go on. If that sounds hyperbolic to you, just stop reading right now and pull up the CPUSA website. It's cpusa.com. He added, spend some time reading and digesting what they're saying there. Try to discern any major differences between the Communist Party's concerns, sensibilities, and social solutions on issues from gay rights to unfettered immigration, to renewable energy, to wealth redistribution, to condemning cops as racist, to universal health care, and those of today's Democratic Party. You're going to find that there's little or no difference. No wonder the Communist Party isn't even bothering to field a candidate this year. They have their candidate and they're pushing her. It's big, bold headlines. I went there today, never been there before. Went there today to their website. Big, bold banner headlines across the front of the homepage of their website. Hillary has to win. Now, the interest has been largely fueled by Clinton's suppressed and later released 92-page senior thesis for Wellesley College, offering an extensive, largely positive critique of Saul Alinsky and his work. Now, Hillary Clinton, in her senior thesis, did it on Saul Alinsky's work, Outline for Radicals, or that's the name of it, something close to that. And she wrote this because she had become a good friend of Saul Alinsky, who advocated the fundamental transformation of American society. Well, Hillary Clinton's association with radical thought dates back to at least 1969, when Obama was just 8 years old. Himself a protege early on of Frank Marshall Davis, a loyal Communist Party activist, by the way, who Obama lived with. That was his uncle. He lived with him during his teenage years. So should we be surprised at all these communist leanings that have now come out? Clinton's 1969 Wellesley College senior thesis was titled, "There is Only the Fight, Analysis of Alinsky's Model." The thesis received attention when it was released after the Bill Clinton presidency. According to reports in early 1993, the White House requested that Wellesley keep the thesis on Rules for Radicals. That's the name of the work of Saul Alinsky. They asked the college to keep that sealed. Nevertheless, it was finally released. Clinton was said to have met with Alinsky several times in 1968 when she was writing her thesis. In her most recent memoir, Clinton wrote that she rejected a job offer from Alinsky to instead attend law school. The revelation of how closely linked her efforts were back in the 80s and have been since to an Alinsky radical front group is deeply disturbing and expands our understanding of Hillary's fundamental radicalism and commitment to the new left of Saul Alinsky. Morris said. David Horowitz, whose parents were members of the Communist Party and who himself became a leader in the New Left movement of the 1960s and 1970s before rejecting it, said the revelation is significant, though not surprising. When radicals set out to fundamentally transform a society, the first institution they attack is the educational system, which under their influence becomes a system of indoctrination in radical ideas, he told WND. Interestingly, the Communist Party USA has not changed its stripes in any significant way. It hasn't walked back its 100% commitment to communism. What has changed is the Democratic Party. So the Communist Party stands still, but the Democratic Party has been moving until now it's almost indistinguishable from the Communist Party. I've just got to tell you the truth. Do your own homework. Go yourself to CPUSA, CommunistPartyUSA.org. You can read all their, and you'll look like it'll appear you're on a Democratic website. The drift leftward hit warp speed beginning in the 1990s, according to Joseph Farah, the president of WND. That's the year Bernie Sanders was first elected to Congress and founded the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Now, he's a socialist, remember? And the term progressive is code word for socialist. And I heard Hillary Clinton say, I'm a progressive. The Congressional Progressive Caucus now has 75 members in the House of Representatives. 75 of our House members openly belong to the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which Bernie Sanders also belongs to, and they're avowing that they are socialist in our government. But they don't call themselves that because people may not vote for them, so they call themselves progressives. It's bait and switch. Anyway, one of his first actions in Congress was to found the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which was partnered with the Democratic Socialist of America, recounts Farah. No surprise there, because most Americans have no idea of what the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the Democratic Socialist of America are really all about. So they were all founded together. The progressives, which Bernie Sanders founded, used the same website as the communists used back in those days. Now, once an article was written exposing this, within hours, it disappeared off the page. They changed it because they didn't want the world to find out who they really were, but now you know. I've given you a lot of things to think about today, and they're all very important. I'll tell you what we're going to do. As soon as we get back from our break, we're going to start taking your phone calls. I know I've gone longer than usual, but this was such important material. We're in a real battle right now, and that battle is between socialism and free enterprise. Socialism takes away freedom and controls where you work, how much you produce, how much you keep. Free enterprise represents freedom. Now, right now, free enterprise doesn't represent as much freedom as it used to, because it's been injected with heavy doses of socialism. That all has to be rolled back. We've got to get rid of the ever-increasing control and all of the stipulations issued by the EPA and all of the different regulations that are being produced by the government, even without congressional action. It's all being done by executive order. All that has to be reversed so America can be free again, so we can, the things that made us the greatest and wealthiest nation on earth, so that can be loosed and let go, instead of running horrible deficits, and instead of our debt mounting, doubling in the last 8 years, up to $20 trillion, doubling in 8 short years. Instead of all that, we've got to get back to what made America the great nation that it is. I'm taking your calls as soon as we come back. To be on the line with me, 877 Endtime is the number. In March 2000, I was leading our annual prophecy tour to Israel. We had made the decision to stop by the United Nations before leaving the United States. After taking the tour of the UN, there was a man who was going to give our group a briefing. And here's what he said to us. He said, now, some people think that the United Nations is a world government. He said, it's nothing like that. He said, the UN is involved in global governance. And I was stunned when he said it. And I just couldn't resist. I felt like I had to ask the man without abusing him, without taking advantage of him. And so I asked him, sir, could you explain to us the difference between global governance and global government? He stopped and he swallowed a couple of times and he said, you know, that may not be easy. I knew it wasn't going to be easy because I'd already looked it up in Webster's Third International Dictionary. It has a one-word definition. The word governance means government.
To find out more about our DVDs on world government, call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com.
Well, let's get to our phones. Joseph is calling from Florida. Hello, Joseph. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Pastor. You know, it's funny that you mentioned about our bridges and roads being in terrible condition and all these people being on welfare. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Barack Obama promise his main focus was going to be to rebuild our bridges and roads and infrastructure and put these same people to work?
I don't remember, that's been about 8 years ago when he first ran, so I don't remember all the promises he made, but I remember one. He said, we are going to fundamentally transform America. And he has done that in many, many different ways.
Yeah, but not in a good way.
Yeah, Joseph, if you believe in socialism, if you believe in one world government, if you believe in wealth redistribution, then President Obama has been an incredible president because he has done what he said he would do. If you believe in same-sex marriage, that men should be married to men and women can be married to women, then you're going to love Obama because he has delivered. And if I believed in all he believed in, I would just think, oh, we just had the greatest president we've ever had. But when you...
I can't stand the guy, but I specifically remember, because I was sitting, I worked for the federal government at the time, and we looked at each other and we said, I lived in New York City at the time. I was like, this is great. He's going to rebuild all the bridges and roads, and we really need this. He never did any of that.
Well, the people on food stamps have gone up by 14 million people in his administration. The amount of people that are unemployed in America, the number has gone up dramatically. Now, the unemployment figures are way down right now, but that's a phony number because the number of people without jobs is up around 90 million right now. They're a record high in the last 40 years or so, I think. So some of those numbers have been manipulated in their reports. And, I'm not here to bash anybody. I'm here really to talk about the course of our country. Will we go into the socialist one world government the Bible prophesies for the times just ahead, or will we come to ourselves, back out and say, we're not going there, and return to the traditions and to the belief system that has made America great? That's my big solution. I'm not really here to promote Hillary Clinton or to promote Donald Trump. That's not my main purpose. My main purpose is for everybody to really know what's going on right now.
Yeah, we definitely need prayer as a nation, I'll tell you.
Yes, we sure do. Well, listen, Joseph, thank you very much. We appreciate it so much. And I suppose we can safely say the stakes have never been higher, because it was President Obama's determination to fundamentally transform us into something different than what we were. And he was not shy about it. He came out and said, oh, America is not a Christian nation. America has never been a Christian nation. And I thought, what rock did he crawl out under? I mean, I've been raised in this country, and we've always been a Christian nation. When I went to school, at Christmas time, we sang all the Christmas carols, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Joy to the World. No problem whatsoever. It was a great time. Now then, you can't sing songs like that in the public schools because they won't let you. Now, Donald Trump says that once he's elected, we're going to be saying Merry Christmas again. I don't know what's going to happen, but let me tell you, we should love everyone. We should defend religious freedom for everyone, but that doesn't mean we change the United States to conform to everyone. If Muslims come here, does that mean none of us eat during Ramadan? Does that mean that we start changing all of our laws and instilling Muslim holidays? We should not do that. America is built on Judeo-Christian values. If they want to come here and adopt our values, fine. If they don't want to adopt our values, they should not come here. They should stay wherever they are. Because you see, the Constitution does not give anybody a right to come here. I had someone recently say, I'm just within the last couple of days, well, they got a right to come here. Oh, no, they don't. They have no more right to come here than a stranger walk into your house and say, I'm moving in your spare bedroom. They don't have a right to do that. We all who are American citizens, we have the protections of the Constitutions. They don't enjoy those rights. We should protect our country and keep its culture Judeo-Christian, because that's what makes our Constitution work. Without Judeo-Christian beliefs, our Constitution will not work, and our government will end up collapsing. So no Muslim, no Jew, no Buddhist, nobody, even Christians from other countries, they have no right to come here unless we allow them to come. If they come, make application, and we properly vet them and we consent for them to come, we don't have to let one more person immigrate to America. We have no obligation to do that because this is our country. They only come in here by permission and goodwill from the American people. We're not obligated in any way to let them come in. Let's get right back to the phones now, and Chuck is calling from Indiana. Hello, Chuck.
Hello, Irvin.
Yes.
I'd like to endorse what you said 100%. In 1988, I was a guest of Mikhail Gorbachev in the Perestroika, along with about 25 other officials from around the United States, and we were toured and shown the Soviet Union.
And what happened?
Hello?
Yes, what happened?
Well, we were wined and dined and met with government officials and saw their communal farms and everything all over the country. They wanted to show us what the Soviet Union looked like. But I want to remind all your listeners that it was called the Union of Soviet Socialistic Republics. It was very eye-opening. The thing didn't work. The whole system was broke.
Yeah, socialism does not work. Now, they funneled huge amounts of money into their military industry, and they had many, many nuclear weapons. But outside of their military, they were a third world country, and still are to a great extent. They don't even rate in the top 8 of the economies of the world. We only brought them in because they allowed the Berlin Wall to fall, and in Thanksgiving, we changed the G7 to the G8. But they in no way qualified as far as the size of their economy was concerned, because socialism wrecked their economy.
Yeah, in 1988, when we went outside the city, the people were wearing sackcloth as clothing. Their teeth were rotting out of the mouth, so we knew that they didn't have dental care. And they also, their bathroom facilities were outhouses in 1988.
Wow. Well, Chuck, and what we're saying on this program, we know that God loves every human being on this planet. And so we're not in any way trying to denigrate those things. We're talking about systems here that put people in abject poverty and slavery. We're not talking against people, even against nations. We're talking against an ideology, because socialism makes the government God. That's the reason socialism and atheism always go hand in hand. When socialism comes in, the 10 Commandments go out. We've watched it happen. Socialism comes in, prayer goes out. The government gets bigger, God gets smaller. That's the nature of everything, and we've watched it happen here in the United States of America. That needs to be reversed now. Needs to be. Thank you very much, Chuck, for your...
Irvin, I endorse what you said 100%. I hope every one of your listeners is listening, because you hit it exactly nail on the head.
Thank you very much, Chuck. I appreciate it so much. Let's go now to Dan, calling from Florida. Hello, Dan.
Yes, Brother Baxter.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Very well.
Okay. I have a question regarding Revelation 12. I have heard that on September 23rd, 2017, the planet Jupiter, which is the king planet, is supposed to turn into the belly of the constellation Virgo, and it's supposed to remain there and for 38 to 42 days, which is the normal gestation period, and then come out from the womb of the constellation on the last day. Now, would this mean anything?
In my opinion, no. And I'll tell you why. There's a lot of crazy theories out there. I know that,
right.
And there are, there's a prophecy in Revelation chapter 12 of a woman with 12 stars around her head giving birth to a child. And when that child was born, he was to be, the dragon tried to kill him, but he was caught up to God and to his throne. Well, then it skips 2,000 years and talks about a war in heaven in verse number 7 of chapter number 12. And it says that Satan will attempt to overthrow God. He will make war against God and his angels. Michael, the warrior angel of heaven, will lead the angels of God against the angels of Satan, and Satan, as a result, will be banished from ever appearing in the presence of God again. He can appear in the presence of God right now, but he's going to be cast into the earth. That happens 3.5 years before Armageddon. Now, we know there's a 7-year period coming. There's going to be a peace agreement signed. That's going to start the final 7-year period. They're trying to get it done this year. I don't know whether they'll make it or not. I sort of doubt they make it, but they will make it pretty quickly now. When they sign that agreement, we'll be 7 years away from Armageddon. At the time they sign that agreement, we'll be 3.5 years away from the war in heaven that's going to trigger the Great Tribulation. Those are the things we know. And there's a lot of crazy theories out there, people studying the stars, but a lot of their things are not based on the prophecies of the Bible. I stick with Bible prophecy because I know that's going to come to pass. I've watched it happen over and over and over again, and that's where we can be safe. We know those things for sure.
Okay, I have another question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Is Pope Francis in any way involved in the Middle East peace process?
Well, he certainly would like to be, and he invited Shimon Peres and also Mahmoud Abbas to the Vatican and did talk to them, trying to get a Middle East peace thing done. So he is somewhat involved. Some people even think that the overseeing of the Temple Mount, once the sharing arrangement is put in place that's going to happen, that could be put under the control of the Vatican, that the Vatican is sort of a neutral party, could oversee those holy places and make sure everything's done equitably. I don't know whether that's going to happen that way or not, but nevertheless, are they involved? Yes, they are involved, even though I can't tell you what prominent role they may be playing right now, but I'm sure they're going to be involved in one way or another, and I'm pretty sure that the Pope will be present when they dedicate the third temple on the Temple Mount a few years from right now. Listen, I've got to let you go, Dan. I'm totally out of time. I want to talk to all of you right now because, as you can see from some of the things we're talking about today, events are speeding up. The world's never going to be the same after this presidential election. The train has left the station. We're not here to tell you the end time is coming. We're here to tell you the end time has arrived. You are in it right now. Endtime Ministries is pushing with all of its might through television, through radio, through the magazine, through social media, every way to reach more and more people. We need more partners to strengthen us, to help us. Please join us. Join with us in this end time thrust. We're about out of time, but we've got time. But we need your help. So become a partner with Endtime Ministries. To become a partner, pick up the phone and call us 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463, or go to endtime.com. You can do it online. That's ENDTIME.com. Bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.